Welcome back to the Writer's Room. Today we are talking about our favorite practical effects.
That means real. Welcome back to the show, everybody. We are talking about our favorite practical effects today. I am your host, Matt.
I'm Katie.
I'm Michael. And of course, we're coming to you from HollywoodRedux.com. Be sure to subscribe below.
Yes, and so we're talking about our favorite practical effects. So that means the real effects that you see on screen, not computer generated,
That's right.
not drawn in afterwards, legit practical effects.
No computers.
No computers, yes.
Or some hybrid of the practical with computer. Some real element is used with physical prop,
which,
etc.
Which would a perfect example of that would be Jurassic Park. You have almost all the dinosaurs. You also have some stop motion integrated with that and computer animation, but
the animatronics.
The animatronics out of that, the T-Rex, some like one of the best practical effects, and it still gets me kind of choked up every time I see it in Jurassic Park, is the Triceratops, even though it's not a real dinosaur apparently now. The Triceratops scene with Alan Grant, where he's laying on it and it's breathing. Like, it's just that beautiful moment where it's just like he finally, everything he's worked for his entire life, he gets to see this, thing, and that was a real thing, and that sells it so much better, and then the mistakes are made like in future sequels, like Jurassic World, for instance, where everything is computer animated and and the best effect in that entire thing was the practical, brachiosaur or whatever, ultrasaur or whatever it was that died right there, like pretty much in their arms after the hybrid, I don't even remember what it's called.
Let's not.
That thing goes through and kills everything for sport. But yeah, so like, and that scene is very emotional, and it's because there's a real practical thing there that's moving around, and I feel like they missed the boat a lot, especially with like petting zoo stuff and all that stuff in that movie where they could have had practical effects.
It's the choice of shiny and chrome over something real that audiences can feel.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take the time. I mean, another great practical effect, and it's mixed in with makeup, for instance, is American Werewolf in London.
Absolutely fantastic.
The transformation sequence in that, it won an Academy Award. So I mean, like, and you could watch it today. We just watched it a few weeks ago, and that movie's still brilliant. It still looks great. It still has the emotion, and like, that to me still looks better. And then you cut to like something nowadays where you have like what was it, Hemlock Grove. And that was a great transformation sequence, probably one of the coolest werewolf transformation sequences. But then there's also a lot of computer animation mixed in with that. And, like, you can really tell when there's really good makeup happening with really bad visual effects. They just don't blend together. And, it takes a good director, a good DP, and a good, post-supervisor or visual effects supervisor to really pull that together. But a lot of the times you don't get that lucky. So, practical is always more fun. I mean, there's a huge argument over practical and CG, but that's for another day. But yeah, Jurassic Park's a great example of that. You got Gremlins is another great practical effect. Terminator, the T-800s. Oh my God.
All those endoskeletons.
Yeah, those are amazing.
Stan Winston School.
Yeah, everything out of Stan Winston's office.
The best practical effects in movie history.
Absolutely.
Stan Winston and his people.
And it's not always just, scary movies. Well, I guess Alien is still scary. But I mean, think about Alien and think about like Aliens when like they mastered the art of that little tiny mouth that comes out and gets you too, and all that stuff, like, or even just something as basic as like the egg opening, or like the the face hugger, wrapping around the neck. These things are real, and they make the movie so much more like it just
authentic.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, you can do amazing visual effects and trick the audience plenty. I've seen some photoreal apes, like in the new Planet of the Apes movie. Like that was. Some of those shots were incredible, and if you told me that was a visual effect 10 years ago, I would have told you you're lying. So like, you can trick the audience, but still, I feel practical is, if you can do it practically, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you give an actor something to really interact with, or blow audiences away with something like The Thing. Every practical effect in The Thing was perfect. Like, I mean, and oh man. I'm going to get his name wrong. Bodine, I think, did the effects for The Thing. But he also did The Howling. And then you go to The Howling, which tried to kind of do a similar transformation as American Werewolf in London. Not so good. Lots of, it's like a 4.5 to like 8 minute sequence of like somebody just sitting there screaming the whole time, and then cutting back to this ridiculous wolf with like eyeballs swelling up and popping and stuff, and it's so bad. But then he goes to the Thing right after that and blows everybody away, and still, again, those practical effects hold up, And then you got some cheesy practical effects too, like Nightmare on Elm Street with like the long arms in the alleyway stretching out that are clearly on like ropes and PAs like running like, oh god, stay out of the shot,
Evil Dead 2.
Well, those are great. I'm talking like, oh my god, Linda coming in with the chainsaw with no head, after she's already decayed somehow, only after a few hours, Those are amazing movies. And oh yeah, don't even get me started. And then horror really is where you get a lot of practical effects. Think about like Friday the 13th gets split right in half, with a machete. Like that's really cool. There's just so many things you can do in horror with practicals that make it more real, and I think that's why horror leans towards that. Not only because of budgetary reasons, but Eli Roth's Hostel would be a lot different if the practical effects weren't so good. Like the fingers that get chopped off by a chainsaw and things like that. Like if you were to do that with a computer, it would just look terrible. So I think that's where like horror kind of uses a lot more practical. And I'm a huge horror fan, if you didn't know that already. But lots of practical effects in horror movies. But then there's tons of great things in like sci-fi films, and even I've seen some religious films with some pretty practical.
That's what I was going to talk about. I think in terms of achievement in practical effects, I think you can't find a better representation than 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Absolutely.
Because those effects were all
and still
innovations. Stanley Kubrick worked with his team and actually with NASA scientists, with engineers. He used NASA-made trademark glass for lenses and for the space station sequences. If you look up any behind the scenes of that, you'll see that those actors are actually walking around a thing on a centrifuge that spins.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And a lot of that was that. I think like Alfonso Cuarón stood on those shoulders when he made Gravity.
Oh yeah.
Because you can see in the behind the scenes of Gravity that they did a lot of similar things with actually putting the actors in physical space.
Yeah.
And actually spinning them.
And that to me is what makes this industry so exciting to be a part of. Is think about, these are 30 years ago, these movies, and they still made those innovations that blew you away and still will blow you away today.
Absolutely.
And they're practical effects.
Yeah.
And then cut to, 2013, 14, 15, and you've got, Sandra Bullock in this like 360 integrated thing without even wearing a suit. Everything's put on her afterward. But her moving around and everything in relation to the camera, that's all practical. That's all real. You also have like Inception, the hallway fight, that's a giant practical effect and giant
similar
centrifuge.
use technology.
Exactly. And that's all like just, again, where practical looks great. If they were to do that against a green screen, that would not have worked, And
I think another achievement type practical movie would be, and basically the Jim Henson Creature Shop. Anything that
anything.
Because
Dark Crystal.
Those are all real creatures. They all have a life and a soul, and it's like something like the Dark Crystal that you just mentioned. And any of the Muppet movies, of course, but like Labyrinth is another Jim Henson shaped vehicle that I think not just the Muppet puppets, but also there's that sequence where she's falling down, the Jennifer Connelly's character is falling down a chasm, and the walls are made of hands, and the hands make faces that talk to her and push her up, put her down, and it's you don't feel that these are people's hands, even though certainly they were just a bunch of people's hands.
Yeah.
But they're actual hand creatures, and that is the simplest practical effect you could ever do, is just a bunch of hands, but when executed that well.
Yeah, and my favorite movie of all time, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the entire Ark sequence, there was a lot of visual effects in there from ILM, but then if you think about like the melting faces and things like that, those are some of the coolest just effects, just super old school practical elements, and using basically a little heat dryer, a hair dryer to melt the face. And and then on top of that, you've got all the soldiers when the lightning bolts go through them. There's a great behind-the-scenes featurette on the DVDs and the Blu-rays that, it shows they're all wearing just light bulbs on their chests and on their backs, and they just lit them up, and they just shook and then fell down in sequence. And then you bring in the visual effects, and everything comes together perfectly, and you get an amazing sequence that still stands the test of time. and is amazing. And speaking of face melting stuff, you've got Poltergeist. You know,
Wait. Before you go to Poltergeist,
yes,
I have to talk about in this segment models. I'm a big fan of model building, model use, and I think that there's no better representation of that than in the Lord of the Rings movies.
I was gonna say Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. I know I bring it up in every segment.
It
but
doesn't matter.
Look,
it doesn't matter.
It's mastery.
An achievement in filmmaking.
It's mastery. Like how else to talk about something
from props to the costumes to animatronics.
But specifically, the models and in that if we're talking practical effects, I mean they built these really detailed scale models, and those worlds are real. They created those, like Gondor is a real city that was created by model builders.
Yeah.
And then integrated into a greater visual effect or created world in a seamless way. Like you were talking about, and those elements are wrapped together seamlessly.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then one of my other favorite, like I was saying, was Poltergeist, which we brought up a few weeks ago as one of our favorite ghost stories. You can see that episode below. And we got it wrong. We said Joe Dante. It was actually Tobe Hooper.
I didn't say Joe Dante.
Well, I got it wrong. I take full responsibility as a horror fan. But, I mean, the face melting sequence in Poltergeist scared me so much as a kid. Still scares me. But, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much going to do it for this week's episode of The Writer's Room. We're out of time, but we do have plenty more episodes coming out for you. If you missed any of your favorite practical effects or elements in any of your favorite films, please let us know in the comments below. I'm your host, Matt. You can check me out on Splashdown1 on all social medias.
I'm Katie. I'm at Kimmels.
I am Michael, and you can find me at What the Hess.
Yes, and we're coming to you from HollywoodRedux.com. Be sure to check out all of our other shows, the Infinite Grenade Launcher Podcast, the K-Files, all of our shorts and sketches like Holy Shit, and our other shorts like Bump in the Night and Becoming. So that's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for checking out The Writer's Room this week. Be sure to subscribe below to check out any of our previous episodes and upcoming episodes and events.
That's right.
Lots of things going on. We're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con this week, so if you're down there, be sure to check us out at Hollywood Redux for all updates, prize giveaways, all sorts of things that are happening down there. You can even come and say hello to us if you'd like. I promise you, we won't steal anything from you. Well, we might. It depends what you have. Yeah. Miss Klepto over here. All right, so that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.